this is a team as well that we saw at the end of last season that gets on a roll. They just steamroll teams, score 3, 4, 5 in games. And I think if they have that real positive start to the season, lay down a marker to Real Madrid and almost say to them, we don't care what you got up to in the summer. You've got a great manager, you've got great players, but we're going to focus on our own business.
This is dominant performance, to say the least. When you look at this game, Mallorca clearly not in the class that Barcelona is. Did you learn anything about Barca in this match?
I think it was just press play again on what we saw at the back end of last season. They're just such an exciting team to watch. Hansi Flick has got them playing this kind of attacking, aggressive, fun brand of football. Because that was the other thing, and I'm sure you saw the same thing. When you watch Barcelona play, it almost can't fail to bring a smile to your face when you see them enjoying themselves. They've added Marcus Rashford to the equation, which I think is an absolutely brilliant signing. And I think for them, they had a fairly truncated pre-season. They played that game against Como, scored 5 goals. They're obviously in good form coming into the season, and they've continued that here. They've got an amazing record against Mallorca. I think it's 14 out of the last 15 times these two teams have played Barcelona have won. They haven't beaten them since 2009. So this was a fairly kind start to the season for Barca, but you've still got to go out and do it. And I think Hansi Flick's probably just saying to his players prior to these games, well, what you did at the end of last season, just keep doing that.
Yeah, after the first 45 minutes, they didn't get out of second gear. They didn't need to. They were in complete control of this game, and obviously you saw there were more red cards for Mallorca than shots on goal. But Joan Garcia did take that shot in the face, which resulted in one of the red cards, the newly minted starting goalkeeper. Also, you mentioned Rashford was in this lineup. What did you see from the two additions? Granted, Garcia, very little action.
Yeah, I think Garcia is a good addition. He was obviously very highly regarded at Espanyol. He knows the division. He wasn't tested massively, really, was he? Managed to get him registered in time, because that was the question mark. The big thing wasn't over whether or not they would play well, it was whether can we get them on the pitch in time. Rashford was confirmed a few hours prior to kick-off, Joan Garcia as well. He's got a lot to live up to. Obviously, ter Stegen, one of the greats in terms of goalkeepers in recent years. But I think he had a good performance, kept a clean sheet, and I think for Marcus Rashford, we saw plenty to be excited within that friendly game I talked about against Como. He wasn't rewarded with a starting position. Some were saying, well, the fact that Lewandowski was injured, would that mean that Marcus Rashford would be that focal point up front? But I think this is how Hansi Flick, at least at this initial point of the season, until they get any other injuries, this is how he's going to play it. He's going to start him on the bench and use him as that impact sub. And we've seen what he can do when he was in form for Manchester United. He's a really dangerous player. I think he's a great signing. Do
you think he will be that? He will be a guy that could be a game changer for them if he's used in this way, where he is deployed as a sub. Will he be able to grow into this team and have a very effective season?
For sure, and I think when you've got, Lewandowski clearly is the first choice striker, but at his age, he's not going to be able to play a full season. You're going to have to rest him, and there will be times when perhaps the way that, and this we can see the starting lineup here. So it was Torres playing in that, out-and-out striker role, and then Raphinha on the left, Yamal on the right, and Fermin Lopez just in behind, in that position behind Torres. And there is an argument to be made, if there's an injury to Torres or Lewandowski needs a break, then you could bring Rashford into any one of those positions, really, because I think that's one of the reasons why Hansi Flick was keen to bring him in. Is Rashford is quite a versatile player when it comes to those attacking positions. He can play out on the left, he can play on the right, and he can play through the middle too. And I hope that he gets a goal. There was a sense of maybe a little bit of desperation. You saw he had a good opportunity. We saw that in the Como game as well. He just wanted to get on the score sheet. Missed a sitter in that pre-season friendly. But I do think once he gets one, then the floodgates might open, and he could have. This could be a move that reinvigorates his career.
He's the kind of guy that needs some confidence too. It's been shaken over the last couple of years. When you miss a sitter like that, and England's media is a little bit of a different animal at times too.
But I remember, I was lucky enough to cover the start of his career at Manchester United, and very few players that I've seen in the flesh have that electric quality that everybody in the stadium gets up off their seats and watched him. And those first few seasons there, particularly that game against Manchester City where he scored 2, remember, he is just, on his day, unstoppable.
Yeah, well, hopefully he can get to that point again. Let's talk about Hansi Flick. Last year they did the double. They do have a couple reinforcements. Really don't lose a lot. Do you tip this team to potentially take a triple? Can they possibly win all 3 competitions?
Yeah, and I think the good thing for him, you mentioned then, didn't lose a lot in terms of the attacking formation. Nothing's changed at all, and almost, as I said before, press and repeat on what we saw at the back end of last season. He's got so much at his disposal. There were some question marks about whether the players will be able to be registered and those off-field issues. Some talk about Dani Olmo being potentially linked with a move away, and that, if that does happen, that would obviously recoup some money for the club, which they need. But there doesn't seem to be too much to be worried about. And I think last season it was Real Madrid who were slow and lacking in ideas and who didn't really live up to the expectation. When it came to Barcelona, I mean, certainly when I was watching them, every time you watched them, it was a joy to watch this young team going forward. And I think for Hansi Flick, if he can keep his players fit, keep them happy, then there's no reason why they can't go and win the treble.
Let's stay in their league, because by most bookies, Real Madrid, though, is the favorite in this division. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it is the Xabi Alonso factor. I think, and we've said this on the show in the past, that surely that he will be able to get this team, given the blocks that he's got at his disposal to build with, back playing brilliantly again. And I do think it is going to be a titanic battle between these two this season. I can't see, there was a period last season, wasn't there, where Atletico Madrid were in the title race, but I think this season it is going to be a real slugfest between Real Madrid and Barcelona, going back and forth, and it may come down to just those Clasico games. I mean, the other thing for Barcelona, we must make a point that they've got a fairly easy start to the season. They've had a great start here against Mallorca. I don't think they play a side that finished inside the top 7 in La Liga last season until the end of October, when they've got the Clasico against Real Madrid. They'll have those first few games in between that in the Champions League. So this is a team as well that we saw at the end of last season that gets on a roll. They just steamroll teams, score 3, 4, 5 in games. And I think if they have that real positive start to the season, lay down the marker to Real Madrid and almost say to them, we don't care what you got up to in the summer. You've got a great manager, you've got great players, but we're going to focus on our own business. Real Madrid are going to have to be up for the fight this season.
Do you think the fact that they obviously winning it last year, how much does that impact this year in the fact of managing that pressure? Because when you do have a weaker schedule, dropping any points in any one of those games could go a long way when we look at what happens in May.
Especially if Real Madrid start well. And I think also there will be some added pressure given what happened in the Champions League last season, because it's all very well dominating domestically, but Barcelona, with all of these talents that they've got on show and having Lamine Yamal signing that long-term contract, which we expected him to do, they want to win the Champions League. They're perfectly good enough to win the Champions League, but for an amazing performance over 2 legs from Inter Milan, they might have done it last season. But I think that will be where they measure themselves this season. That they want to do well again domestically, but they've got their targets set on winning the Champions League this season.